This is Express Training Bites. Today, we have Taylor Borst from American Solutions for Business. I am super excited to have her on the show. Her and I have actually had a chance to run some virtual shows like this one in the past and for her business. And she's going to talk to us today on how you can tailor your, what did we say we were going to call it? Tailor
your virtual strategy. We're feeling really punny today, Brandon.
It's been a rough morning. So Taylor, with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to you. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandon, so much. And thank you, Promo Corner, for the opportunity to speak today. This is so exciting. And yes, Brandon is right. We have had some awesome virtual events. We're definitely getting into new strategies as we move forward. But to kind of take a step back, my name is Taylor Borst. I'm head of communications and public relations for American Solutions for Business. And yes, today we're going to talk about basically elevating your virtual strategy to take it to the next level. And the good news is that if you are watching this video right now, you're already ahead of a large subset of your competition. So engaging on social media, being open to new ideas, and really just taking the time for professional development is key when it comes to adapting and moving forward. So, as I mentioned, we've all had to really make adjustments in the last 6 to 7 months, and I'm not gonna pine over it and go into that too much, but really we do need to address the fact that everybody has had a different adaptation experience because we all started in different places. So, some of us have been using this technology for years and years, and it kind of comes as a no-brainer, but other people have had to start in a different place. And so the exciting part of that is that we are getting closer and closer to closing that virtual literacy gap, because it's definitely a real thing, and it's really making everybody a little bit more connected, which is a wonderful thing. But that is a super important thing to remember, that we are all over the place and we can't assume that everything comes easy to everybody. So really the bottom line, I would say that the foundation to elevating your virtual strategy and being successful online, it comes down to empathy. So thinking about how everybody else is experiencing the world and being able to tweak your strategy in order to meet people where they are and help them grow and help them move, because it does affect how you're going to communicate. So I think about the last 6 to 7 months, I honestly think that the biggest mistakes that I've made have been because I haven't been empathetic enough. So really going back and just thinking about other people's experience is so important in this. But anyway, today I'm going to jump around to a ton of different topics, so please stick with me. I'm going to kind of hit it high level in some and dig into others. But first, I want to start off by talking about video conferencing and online meeting etiquette. So number one, if it is a small meeting, please, please, please turn your camera on. You would never walk into a conference room with a bag over your head or your hoodie up and strings tightened. You would be present, you would be ready for that meeting, and you would want to engage. I think so many people are starving for that face-to-face interaction that this is really important. And then also, if you are in a meeting with a lot of people and you're not speaking, mute is a great invention. So be sure to always mute yourself unless you are speaking. And then also, don't take this as an excuse to stop meeting with your customers. You can host any sort of virtual video conferencing with customers anytime. So one thing that I would strongly suggest is to send your customers samples or spec samples or whatever, and then go over those samples with them. Just because we're living in a virtual world doesn't mean that we can't infuse these physical touches and still teach them about promotional products in that in-person sort of way. And then to that point as well, if you're starting to see that like people aren't coming to your webinars or they're not attending meetings, or you really just want to make sure that you are connecting with people, you can always send a physical invitation. Send them a letter. I'm a millennial. I get super excited when I get mail that is not a bill. So don't underestimate the power of that tangible mailing. You can really have fun with the virtual side and the traditional side that we're maybe all used to playing in. All right, and then going on to Zoom specifically. So I kind of have two major takeaways when it comes to Zoom. So one, use Zoom breakout rooms. We have been using at American Solutions for Business, we have been doing a few different social breakouts where instead of having like, 40 people in a Zoom meeting and having like a happy hour, we actually break them out into the Zoom breakout rooms and then randomize them. So it's supposed to simulate the feeling of walking into maybe a large conference center and going from cocktail table to cocktail table, and you get to just kind of meet and talk with maybe smaller groups of people. Even the most outgoing people, I think, have a hard time sometimes like speaking up when it's a room just full of a bunch of people. So splitting it out is really a smart way to go about that. And then if you want to use it for training or professional development, this is another really great tool too. So don't overestimate Zoom breakout rooms. Be sure to check that out. All right, and then another tip. This one feels kind of silly, but honestly, it's a game changer, especially if you feel like your lighting's not great or maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep. Go into your video settings in Zoom. In the bottom left corner, you'll see that there's you'll see your camera settings. You go to camera settings. There is a couple little check boxes for touch up my appearance, enable HD, mirror video, and adjust for low light. Play around with that, because honestly, being able to be present for people means that you are putting your best face forward, that you don't feel like, you're stuck in a dark room, whatever. You want to make sure that you are truly there for people, and making sure that you look presentable and that you're well lit is a really good thing to do. I know that it seems vain, but honestly, pro tip, please try it out and let me know how it goes. To that point as well, I mentioned be sure that you are well lit. That comes with anything to do with video content, and really embracing video content is so important right now because people are starving for the human interaction, and video is the best representation of that. Photos are wonderful, but video, you capture so much. So be sure that you're well lit. Use a ring light. There's a lot of really great ones on the market. It's even starting to penetrate the promotional products industry too. So we probably have a lot of supplier partners who can hook you up too. And then be sure that you are not recording in front of a giant window. I know a lot of people, have their little desk set up, and sometimes there is a giant like bay window, and to be backlit really takes away from that. Like your webcam is going to make you really dark in the foreground. So if you can avoid that, that's great. And then using a phone stand. If you're recording a lot of video on your phone, like I use my phone for almost all of my video recordings, use a phone stand. That way you can get it to the perfect height so that you're not recording under your face and you're not going too high up. You got to find right at the eye level. So, all right. And then, when I do suggest video, sometimes I get people who are very hesitant. They don't want to record video, and I get it. But I have two armchair theories to why people do not like video content, specifically their own recording. Number one, it's public speaking, and most people are terrified of public speaking. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like coming on, I'm comfortable now, but coming on to speak today, I was starting to get a little nervous, and my trick for that is that I try to trick my brain into thinking that my nerves is actually positive excitement. So if you think about it, positive excitement and nervousness have a lot of the same physical traits and reactions. So like your heart rate, quickened breathing, you might get a little jittery. Just tell your dumb brain that you're actually just really excited and that you're not nervous. And it does kind of change the way that you look at it, and you're able to harness that energy. And then another reason I think that people don't like video is that it feels permanent. It's like whatever you say, it's set in stone, and people are going to come back to it over and over and over. But honestly, how often do you actually rewatch a video? It's almost never. And people often think that if you have video content, it has to be perfect. But the thing is, it does not need to be perfect or even nearly perfect, because it makes it more interesting. Like I find that the more the more types of videos that I do that actually end up turning into this massive train wreck are the ones that have the most engagement and the most views. Like, people want something that's real. Like, they don't want to feel like you're overly editing, or that you are like curating this part of your life, because that's not real life. That's not how people actually are. So I found that kind of does help put things in perspective a little bit too. So then going kind of hand in hand when it comes to video content is where you post it. And so social media is going to be probably the #1 place that you are posting video content. And PSA, you guys, if you use social media for business reasons, there are more rules. More rules apply. First of all, do not get in internet fights. It's not worth it. It's going to alienate customers and people that you work with. I know that social media is personal for a lot of people, but if it's personal, then don't connect with anybody in your business network. It's best to, if you're going to incorporate your personal and business lives, then you still need to conduct yourself in a way where it's not going to be overly offensive. And then second, fill out your profiles. So if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or any sort of social media platform, if you don't complete it, delete it. Because the only thing that's worse than not being active on social media is looking like you started a social media platform and then just totally fizzled out and left it. You might as well just get it off completely. And then a lot of people do look you up. If you're going to cold call somebody, or if you're randomly, dropping into somebody's inbox, most likely they are going to Google you. And if you don't have sufficient information, it's going to look really sketchy. Like, that's a major red flag, especially for a lot of young people right now too, especially in a time where we're all working remotely and we don't have the option to ever meet people in person. This is so, so important. And then kind of to that point too, use a profile picture of you. Not your dog, not your baby, not a sunset. I'm sure that they are all very beautiful, but you need to represent you. And when you engage with people on social media, it has to have your face at least in it. There's nothing weirder than having like a conversation, and this has happened to me before, where I'm having a professional conversation in like my DMs of like Facebook, and it looks like I'm talking to a baby, like in the messages back and forth. It's weird. Just stop doing it. Instead, there are other ways that you can still incorporate your life into social media, which is a really important thing. It's okay to show your life, to show your pets and your babies and your significant others and what you do on the weekends. That's great. And the best ways to do that are most likely going to be in your Facebook banner. That's a great place to put those secondary pictures, but you can also incorporate them into your posts and your Instagram stories and really slowly introduce your audience to different parts of your life, obviously without oversharing. And you want to make sure that you pick a level that's comfortable to you. If you're more of a private person, don't feel pressure to share too much. But it is good, when you're looking at how you want to approach that. There definitely is an old school versus new school way to look at professionalism, and it's all based on how you want to set up those relationships. And then when it comes to social media as well, if you have a business page, look at your content ratio. So how much of it is personal versus product related? So essentially, when you look at that, are you creating a relationship with your followers, or are you just adding to the noise? So sometimes the best way to do that is, incorporating the personal elements of your life with the professional. So think about if you have if you have promotional products at home, try to take a picture of you using that promotional product. So most of you who are watching this video right now are branding consultants, are promotional salespeople. So, use yourself as kind of an influencer for your followers. So take those photos or videos of you using the products and, explain those products. But one tip that I have here, and this is kind of a great example of how you can take kind of the status quo and elevate it to that next level here. So don't just talk about the what of the product, talk about the why and the how. So, okay. So I'm going to show you with this tumbler. Note, I mean, I am a distributor, so this is one of my favorite drinkware pieces, but I just want to show you. So I can say this tumbler has a cork bottom, a leak-proof lid, a large imprint area. That's great. I can tell my followers that, but at the same time, if I am a follower or a consumer, awesome. I can just look that up online. I can see what the features are. That's fine. But the idea here is instead of just saying the what, say the why and the how. So say because it's leak proof, you can toss it into a bag and make it super portable. The cork is a trendy aesthetic. So when you bring it out in public, you feel stylish and you feel good. And the large imprint area actually gives me more room for messaging. So all of this contributes to a higher impression rate and an ROI. That's why you buy things. So taking it one step further to elevate that messaging, and really when it comes down to it, it is our job to translate the language of tangible goods to strategic execution. We don't sell promotional products, we sell ideas and we sell strategy. So that is the message and the mindset that you should be in when you're approaching your followers online. And then major digression here, but I do have to talk about Facebook groups. It is wonderful to join private groups. We have a ton of them in the promotional products industry. When you use private groups, always act with compassion and kindness and collaboration, and always use the search function before you actually post, because somebody might have already asked a question. You can save a ton of time on your end and find that information really, really quickly without having to get too repetitive in that group. All right, then finally, Brandon mentioned that we had a wonderful, wonderful turnout for our American promo show that we worked in tandem with. But virtual events are a really important part of our industry. Events for our industry are just so important in general. And so being able to adapt to this new world of virtual events, it's a wonderful opportunity, but there are certain things that we're kind of learning as we go. But the first question that you have to ask yourself when you are planning for a virtual event, whether it's company-wide, or if you are just hosting a small event, maybe for your customers, it still comes into play. The first question that you have to ask yourself is, what is your intended outcome? Is it to create connections and relationships? Is it education? Is it problem resolution? Is it purely social? Sticking to that is going to help you a lot when it comes to planning. And then it's always good to, still incorporate some sort of social element. I've mentioned this a little earlier, but people are starving for that human interaction. And so it's really great to have that as a piece to it. There should be video elements. Always over communicate. It's great when you create how-to videos and frequently asked questions, because as I mentioned, everyone is starting at a different comfort level and a different understanding. And probably one of the worst feelings in the world is feeling like you are incompetent or not knowledgeable enough to engage, or feeling like the world and technology is passing you by, and you never want anybody to feel that way. And so having that empathy and going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, what would I need to know if I didn't know how to use social media or didn't know how to go onto a conference call. Starting back at square one will help everybody feel more engaged and more comfortable. And then having a mix of live and pre-recorded content, that's always great to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit for you, because as you know, live can be very unpredictable, but it's still a wonderful way to keep everybody engaged as well. All right, then finally, this is kind of my last point when it comes to virtual events. Keep your expectations realistic or you're going to burn out. So don't compare your in-person metrics. It is a completely different landscape. Start to come up with things that are realistic for you and for your company, and be kind to yourself if you don't always hit or exceed those expectations, because we're all just learning as we go. So that is pretty much my wrap up for this section. Brandon, I don't know if you're going to hop back in. I don't know if we had anybody jump in during or not, but I'm ready for you.
No, those were all amazing points. And yeah, we've got a couple of comments. We got Lori Moore here. She said, I love the PSA. Don't get into internet fights. I feel like that's such a duh, but the fact that we have to say that kind of hurts. That hurts me a little bit, but I get it. And then Joanna Gottlieb, of course, she's chiming in. She's a huge fan. She says, "Killing it as usual, Taylor." So,
oh, Joanna, thank you.
Got some great fans out there. One of the things that I wrote down, and it's one of the things that I've hammered since day one, and now you and I both have worked for this guy. His name's Dana Zezo. He way back before social media was anything. It had just become public. He saw the business side of it. And one of the things he always told me, and I always heard him say, and when I first started working for him, was complete your profile, because that is, and I love it. So when you wrote fill out, don't complete it, delete it
or delete it. Yes. Get it out of there. You don't want to look like a ghost. Like a lot of people will create it and then they'll think that they're done, or some people will underestimate how much actual work goes into maintaining a social media presence. Mm-hmm. And so, somebody will say, "Oh, I need to get on social." And it's like, do you know all of the elements and all of the time and effort that it takes to be on social? It's, especially if you're using it for business purposes, it's not just something that you can, I'll just throw this up whenever I have content. You have to have a plan, and that takes time and effort and planning.
Absolutely. And if that's one thing that this pandemic has kind of helped us with too, is it's helped the, and I hate the term, but it's realistic. The older generation use those amazing sales tips and those tricks and all of that experience that they had, but then learning how to manipulate it and use it in the new digital age. And vice versa, us young kids that are jumping into this and we think we know everything about social media, but we don't know the first thing about selling. So both sides can talk to each other and help each other out. And I think one of the things about completing your profile for the older generation to understand, and even the younger generation to understand, is you only get one time to make a first impression. And when you're doing cold calls digitally, like if I click on somebody's name on LinkedIn and I'm like, I should link up with them because I see that they're the sales director at this place, and I go in there and it's the ghost picture. Hi, I'm next company. I'm moving on.
Yep. Yeah. So. Huge red flag. But you're so right though. It's like we have to meet in the middle there. There's so much to learn, and we can't just discount somebody because they're, maybe not engaged virtually, and exactly to your point, vice versa. And so it's so exciting to slowly start to see these two sides come together a little bit, because I have to say, even over the last 6 months, I've gotten to know salespeople and other people in our organization where I've never really gotten to have that relationship with them before, because we're all living hundreds and thousands of miles from each other. And so this virtual connection has provided so many opportunities to come together, and that would have never happened without the pandemic, for sure.
No, it might have, but a way slower. And this was, for lack of a better term, it was forced. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we were just kind of jumping right in. And one of my favorite things to say is that little dot on the top of your laptop isn't just for the CIA to spy on you. It literally is a way that you run your business now.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then the last little thing I want to talk to you and just kind of reiterate trade shows, virtual trade shows. I love what you said. And maybe you can go in a little further onto the manage your expectations. I know you kind of did it from the hosting side where you're, manage how many people you're going to see and all that. But as a distributor going into those, what can you expect, or what should your expectations be for the suppliers that you're seeing?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, because these supplier partners are also going through the exact same struggles that our distributor partners are going through. It's like we're all having to learn together. And I have to go back to that empathy. We have to be understanding, and we have to care about each other enough where, let's say that you are in a, let's say that I'm a distributor partner meeting with a supplier partner, and the supplier partner can't figure out their video conferencing call, and they can't seem to dial in correctly. Having the patience and caring about them enough to actually help them understand. We joke about this all the time internally, but it's like, it is so helpful to teach a man to fish rather than give them a fish for a day. And so that's kind of our philosophy as an organization, and as our internal team as well, is that we want to teach our people how to fish, and our people extends to our supplier partners as well.
No, that's awesome. No, I want to say thank you, first of all, because you showed a ton of empathy for me at the beginning of this whole deal, because I was struggling to get this to go live. I have done this a bunch of times, and for whatever reason, I could not figure it out. So thank you so much for taking the time and hanging in there with me at the beginning of this. And also, thank you so much for spreading all of your tips and joy and your smile and everything here at Express Training Bites, Taylor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. And I have to say, that would actually be sympathy, because sympathy, the definition is if you have felt it yourself. And I have to say, I have run into those exact same technical difficulties myself. So I feel you. I'm with you. We got this. And hey, everything went off without a hitch.
I think so. I think it'll look great.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody, thank you for joining us for Express Training Bites. We will see you next Thursday.